for a few days anyway. We have our guest, Avonelle Hector, on the line, and we want to talk to Avonelle this morning. And I want to, some of you might know Avonelle, but I want to take the opportunity for her to say who she is. Avonelle lives in the Diego Martin area. She is the daughter of former member of parliament and my very good friend for many years until she passed away, Margaret Hector. But Avonelle has been basically a person in her own right, creating space and creating opportunities, and in the tradition of her mother, with great caring for the downtrodden in the society. She's always there for the weak and the vulnerable, the poor, and more than that, she is always there if there is a disaster or if there is a problem in some community. She is a community person who likes to help, and I want to take the opportunity now as I introduce you to her to welcome her and to say good morning, Avonelle. How are you? Good to see you.
Well, I normally call you Uncle Bhoe, but I have to say Dr. Bhoe for this purpose. Well, I'm not very well for a number of reasons. My mentor, who also carries the name of my mother, Margaret Elcock, would have passed suddenly on Sunday, so that has really hit me a hard blow. And you know that we have a substantive investment in Haiti, having worked there for the last 19 years. To see what has happened this morning and an understanding of geopolitics and how things have traditionally folded. So I'm not in a very good space at this moment, mentally and emotionally, but I have to arise, get up. There are some hungry people in Trinidad and Tobago that demand my urgent attention. And then, of course, this amazing platform that you have afforded me. So all things considered, I'm good.
All right, okay. I'll get back, if you don't mind, and if you don't want to talk about it, you won't do it, and I won't do it now. If you don't mind, I'll talk a little bit about your relationship with your mentor. And of course, I will
we can talk.
I will talk about your relationship with Haiti and what you've been doing there. But let us go on to other things. What are you doing now in Trinidad and Tobago? Your organization is called Is There Not a Cause?
Yes.
And
yes.
Basically, it's an organization that looks after people when they are in need. So what have you been doing recently? Start with Trinidad and Tobago, and then we can look to other things that you've been doing in the region and elsewhere in the world.
Okay, so this is our 19th year of operation. On Sunday, as an NGO, we got, I could be wrong, but I don't know if it exists. I'm not going to speak with absolute certainty, but I'm not aware that there are any other mobile food kitchens in Trinidad and Tobago. So some might have seen it on the national news. On Sunday, we officially got our first mobile soup kitchen, where we'll be going around to different communities and cooking meals on the spot and serving persons. It will be an extension of our city outreach, a property that we purchased in Port of Spain that we'll be using containerized housing to be able to house persons. We also have two properties that we provide transitional housing. Based on the situations that you are in. You lost your house, you've been, fire, flood, a lot of people being evicted because of what's happening with COVID now. Those types of situations, we house you. We would have purchased that property during the pandemic in last year into this year. We provide meals every day for persons. Excuse me. We provide meals, not every day, but very often. Thank you, Doc. We provide lots of hampers. Last year alone, we would have done 6,000 plus hampers, over 2,000 meals. This year, we're not doing the count as rigid as we did last year. And I think I need to count that so that we can articulate to our donors exactly how many hampers that we've given and to be able to measure the impact. And we've had some flooding in different parts of the country. For example, Sandy Grande, we were there, cleaning supplies, meals, groceries, sheets, different things. So we step in as a first responder when there's a disaster, and we also assist persons who, like so many of our citizens, that they are in a very unfortunate situation. It's now 7:23, and my phone, my WhatsApp just jammed actually because there's so many messages coming in for people needing food. So we haven't even gotten to that. And we have partnerships like, for example, McDonald's have been quite gracious to us. Well, a month ago, they gave us batches of food items. And then, the delay of the opening of the restaurants, which of course is one reason why we're in this situation, because a lot of single moms work in those industries. I guess they don't know when the opening is going to take. So we have been called today to receive another batch of raw materials from McDonald's. And with that, we cook meals, and then we also do delivery, so PK families, burger parties, and they're glad because it's a little deviation from just beans and rice and tuna and corned beef. So that's what we're doing right now. And we're also looking for property for containerized housing, because we've gotten some containers that we can use for housing. When I say containers, I mean properly done, air conditioned, good quality. So we are looking for land to place those containers right now.
Okay,
That's locally.
yes, and that is in Trinidad and Tobago, okay? And you're
Yes,
talking
yes.
about reaching out literally to thousands of people in various ways who find themselves under conditions of hunger and who find
Yeah,
themselves under conditions of need,
yeah.
basically unable to put food on the table. What is your first-hand experience of what is happening in Trinidad and Tobago before the pandemic, I would say about 15 months ago, and what is happening now that the pandemic and the shutdowns, the lockdowns, etc., have taken hold and people are sort of out of work and out of income? What was the situation pre-COVID and what is the situation now? Can you compare?
Sure. Okay, so I would have actually met with the Minister of Social Development, the Honorable Minister Donna Cox, last week, and her team, and I will be going, when I'm finished, getting ready to head down today again to meet with the PS and some other key players in social development to see how the NGO community can be more involved, hands-on, to assist the government in this Herculean task of reaching the disadvantaged. Now, one of the things that we have done in Trinidad and Tobago over the years is that we have denied the existence of the poor among us. The magnitude of people that have been scraping by, barely making it pre-COVID. I mean, I have seen poverty in Trinidad and Tobago and you can, people that have been parallel to what I've seen in Haiti. I remember going to Palo Seco in 2003. Palo Seco, the oil belt in the Southland, and stopping and saying to myself, I literally had to pull back and say, you didn't take the plane. I was supposed to go to Guyana that weekend. I just come back from Haiti and have a talk with myself. You did not take a plane, Avonelle. You are in Trinidad and Tobago. And people would make comments like, oh, they can't be all that hungry. That's much of social programs available and this and that and whatever. Like there's so many things for a woman who to go to work, even CPEP. The amount of money you're going to have to pay for a safe babysitter, because our communities are not structured to give that kind of support. And that's something that we are going to look at, or we are looking at, but we will put in place very soon once it's open, these safe centers. So we had all of these people that were teetering on the brink of poverty, things we joke about in Trinidad and among the poor people. This is my trust week. What my trust week means, Doc, is that it's the last week of month end, and there's more month than money. So whatever little groceries and whatever little things I would have done, it's finished like within that third week. And I'm skating. Some people don't have money to go to work on that last month. That is the reality for many people in Trinidad and Tobago. People talking about 6 months salary save up. These people don't have 6 days salary. They're living day by day by day. And so now so you couple that now with what is happening, Doc, the lockdowns, it's crazy.
And what you're talking about, there are working people in the pre-COVID period who
What
are
we call
living
the
day to
working
day.
poor.
Yes,
Yes,
who are living from day to day and who cannot meet their needs for every day of the entire month. And
yes,
therefore, at least 1 week of their month is what you call trust week. So they've got to expend some of the money from the next month to pay for the week
yes,
of the last month
yes,
before. All
yep,
right, now that is pre-COVID, and these are working people. And below that, you have people who are unemployed and have no income. So that is
yes,
what we are talking in terms of layers of poverty and layers of economic challenge, financial
yes,
challenge. In
yes.
the COVID period now, as things have gotten harder, people have lost their jobs, what are you seeing? I imagine, first of all, you are seeing many more. And secondly, you are seeing an increase in the intensity of stress and poverty under which people live. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Okay, so a lot of people say that you should have 6 months. There's economists who speak to the poverty that exists in our society in an abstract way. 6 months of saving, people don't, right? So, once again, that's not most people reality. There's no saving for rainy day because every day of survival in the ghetto is a rainy day. So now you have a lot of moms, things that are reality in the poor. A lot of single moms. We're not here to judge them on their life choices because that's not going to put food on their table. A lot of them have fathers of their children who low end in like construction workers, laborers, different things that they have taken to the court to get what we call maintenance. That's so that the court demands that the father would pay for the maintenance of his children. If you calculate, Duncan, you are the developer, the more economic kind of person, you can calculate how much it is for the minimum wage. And for example, the average single mom rent is between 1,800, 2,000, 2,500, 3,000, and it's nothing fancy, very basic things. So the last couple of months, people's rents have been backing up. And I have spoken to so many people that have said, the landlord has gone the distance with me. We have something called a rent assistance grant. And we do understand that the government cannot pay everybody's rent for extended period. But the rent assistance grant affords you, if you qualify, to get your rent paid for 3 months. So a lot of people would have already received some of those benefits last year. And now, or even some of them into the start of this year. And they are now at a place where the landlords are saying, listen, I see a situation, I understand, but I have my bills to pay. We have untold amount of our citizens who have moved into abandoned buildings. We have rescued people, just us alone, from sleeping by seaside, from sleeping on the promenade, sleeping in people's cars. It is crazy. Persons who are calling and saying that they have not eaten for days, not because they're watching their weight, because there is literally no food for them to eat. And so we have been the restaurants, and if you calculate how many thousands of people are in that industry, the fast food outlets, I think since April. So there's no April thing, and some of them will get a 150 grant, I think, a week or allowance. We are heading into July, and we do not know when the situation will change in terms of being in terms of the economy opening back in those factors. And even when it is opened, these people, they have been thrown so far back. If school were to open September or whatever it is, they would need things or online or in person. If it opens in person, school books, school uniforms. If not, we've seen the report of 2,000 children. And those of us in this stream, we know it's more than 2,000 children that have dropped off. We are going to see not just the impact now, Doc, but I am scared for the poor in this country because many of them who education would have been that thing to lift them out of the morass that they are in, by this whole new online system that many of them don't have the support to function effectively, they are going to be left behind. And it's hard for people to function right now. You're hungry, you have to go online, your mother frustrated, you're in a little cooped up room. It's crazy. It's heartbreaking.
Based on your experience, what numbers are we talking about here in terms of children and homes? And I know that you're talking about people basically losing their homes and becoming homeless as well, so I imagine that is growing as well. What are we talking about here? 5,000, 10,000, 15,000? Or are we talking about more than that?
I don't know all of these figures, and in a country where truth is foreign and everything is doctored, I don't know that we will ever be able to know the full impact and the full what has really happened to our story, to our society. In years to come, the story will be told, albeit in pieces. Maybe somebody have to do. Yesterday I have raised funds for Haiti. I've raised funds for Kenya, for India, all over the world. And yesterday, an organization held an online fundraiser for us. And I sat in this same seat watching on my TV, and I said to myself, "Oh my God, they're not talking about Haiti. They're not talking about some foreign country. They're talking about Trinidad." And I could not eat about the state of what is happening. I could not even get mad, Dr. Bhoe, because the picture that they were showing, albeit grim, it is our reality today in Trinidad and Tobago. People are very, very broken. And I don't want to say anything to be misconstrued, to be misquoted, but those that hold the reins of power have to pay attention to the groundswell, because we are at the tipping point of frustration, and people feel a sense of hopelessness. They feel trapped. They feel constrained. They feel like nobody's hearing them. Nobody is feeling what their children are feeling, and it's that's what I'm not gonna say anything. I don't want to be but a word to the wise. We are not at a good place as a society. And if those that have money and are able to eat and enjoy the goodness of life, which is their right, continue to ignore those that are hungry and at the bottom scraping for survival, we are not at a good place in this country.
Okay, there are three things that you mentioned there, though, that are critical. One is, I hear you to say, look, the level of poverty is much worse, and the level of need, the level of hunger is much more severe than it was before the pandemic. If it was bad then, it is horrible now. The second thing that you are saying is that restaurant owners and so on have been helpful to you, as well as a lot of donors in making these things available, and you are building your infrastructure. And the third thing that you are saying is that there seems to be a gap between what the government understands and the reality on the ground. What do you think needs to be done? If you had the power, if you had the will, if you had the say-so in order to do what you think is necessary now, what would you do?
Okay, I just want to say, well, we are at a unique position. Now, Trinidad has always been the country to help the region in terms of disasters. So for us, we've been heavily invested in St. Vincent, and we see what happened the last couple of days. So we are also involved in that process. But then our heart is at home. So as I said, I would have met with Minister Donna Cox last week, and I didn't go to get a grant for my NGO. We have been really good, and God has been good to us for the last 19 years. That we have, we own properties, we do all sorts of things, and we have never depended on the largesse of the state. Maybe one day we might get a grant. I don't know. Today I go back. This is what I can do.
So,
Try to get the heirs.
let me understand this clearly, Avian. You don't exist on the basis of grants from the state, and you are supported by the private sector. Is that correct?
And the private sector to a lesser extent than me by grassroots. Our support is very, very grassroots. Citizens here, citizens in the diaspora, England, Canada, America, or parts of Europe, they would remit funds to us, and we do a lot of fundraising We are always doing something. Just that right now we are a bit limited because of COVID. But we bought a building last year for $2 million, starting raising funds from July into this year. We sold food. We did every single thing that you can think about so that we could get that building to help persons. One day we are hoping that the government will see the value of what we do, what we bring to society. We've helped deportees, we house people, we had a school for the migrants, we do migrant medical care, groceries, meals, counseling, we build houses, we do micro entrepreneurs. I mean, you just name it. So maybe one day the government will see the value of what we do, and we will be able to get that funding. But we are not sitting by. And quite frankly, Doc, if the government has to fund everything that the third sector, which is the NGO civil society, does, then in a way it negates the whole. Yes, the government should fund, should support. There are many things that they can do, policies and programs, and that is what I am engaged in. As soon as I come off, as I said, I'm going to meet with the PS of Social Development to be a voice for the NGOs across the board. To see, so this is what I can do. Seek to foster greater engagement between the civil society / NGO not-for-profit sector and the government and the state in terms of what it is that is not necessarily to form policy for the government, but to forward the government. So, for example, if the Ministry of Social Development minister said, these are the things that we would like to do. So that there's a database that exists, so she knows and her technocrats know, listen, we are going to do, let's just say, homelessness. These are the groups that are involved in the process. Those that can do the transportation, or do the counseling, if we need barbers, whatever it is we need. And then the state can then draw on these resources for quick and efficient and cost-effective delivery of social services. So, and because we down on the ground, there are things that we understand that we can bring. So I'm thinking of a lot of like a think tank. Yeah, think tank between the NGO community and the government. So that we would feed to the government. There will be that connection where we can feed these things to the government. And they can work with us and we work with them to see how we can help. So the government comes and they roll out and they say, listen, we see that there are a lot of single moms who are overwhelmed and because of that, they're being abusive to their children. Children are being abandoned. Then we look at the other social ills of that. Incest, this, that. How are we going to deal with this problem? And they can have a high-level meeting up in there with all the fancy stuff, or they can say, listen, NGOs, who are the people in this particular sector? Who are the groups that are involved in council and this and that? How are we going to break it out? And to encourage that breaking up of this sector into areas and regions. So, for example, the government knows if they're in Tobago, the NGO that's there is for the main NGO we're going to deal with, or two NGOs, Dr. Somani and Onika Mars, they're dealing with domestic violence. So this is what I want to do, and this is what I am working very hard at this moment to foster, Doc. That tighter synergy with the NGO.
Yeah, you're trying to bring some thought, some strategy, some structure and system to the process so that it ultimately reaches the people. Do you think that the government is sensitive to what needs to be done, or do you think that they are too, what can I say, highfalutin in the governmental sense, too divorced from what is the reality, and secondly, too political in their thought process?
If you asked me that question last week, I would have said there's a great disconnect. And yes, there's still a great disconnect. But I haven't spoken to the minister extensively. I believe that her heart is in the right place. I cannot speak to the wider government because I don't really have that kind of interface or exchange with them. Yeah. But having spoken with the line minister for social development, I believe it is a Herculean task. There are a lot of things in the system that needs to change, but I believe that her heart is in the right place and that she actually had a greater sense of what is happening than I thought before. So that for me is very, very, very helpful as somebody in the sector, because one of the things that I felt, and this will apply still on different levels and different aspects of society, a lot of times the persons who are charged with the responsibility to carry out the task, execute, don't really have a real, and so that they have a theoretical thing. So even for poverty, you see, I mean, and Doc, you know where my mom came. So when my mom went into parliament, and everybody doesn't have to be this, but we can connect with those who know it. When my mom went into parliament, she had come from a place where she knew what it was to not have food to feed her children. So when she was at Ministry of Health Office of the Prime Minister and or in her constituency office, and her single mom showed up and said, "Mrs. Hector, I don't have nothing to eat." She knew what that meant. It didn't mean that there was food in the fridge that I don't want to eat because it's leftover that I bought from Tong restaurant or from what I cooked on Sunday. When we say we have nothing to eat as poor people, we mean it ain't got nothing. We empty the salt. It might only have salt. We empty everything to make the last was flour, we make dumpling. Or if it was rice, we put butter in it. So that has to increase even during this pandemic. We need a greater level of sensitivity by all the players who are entrusted to effect change.
Okay. Let's leave Trinidad and Tobago for a minute. And you have, your NGO, Is There Not a Cause, have been to many countries, and you have done work in many countries with the poor there. Could you tell me what some of those countries are, and very quickly, tell me some of the kind of things that you did there?
Okay, India.
Yeah.
I've been to India 4 times, right? Starting after the tsunami, we would have supported a number of different children's projects, educational projects, and one of the challenges in India is infanticide. They are not fond of girls. There's a sign that says actually spend extra money to abort the baby as opposed to how much money you have to spend for the dowry. So one of the children's homes that we support, the government would bring and the police would bring girls who have abandoned, because when they were born and the parents found out that they were girls, they were abandoned. So the police will bring them to this particular home, but the government does not support the home. So we supported that home and the educational projects in a number of Tamil Nadu, Sri Ram Nagar, different parts of India, Salem and stuff. So we've been to Kenya. We have property in Kenya, land that we started building on, but it got destroyed. The foundation work and cost us a lot. So we have to start over. They have what we call female genital mutilation, and lots of girls are also involved in teenage or child prostitution. So we were rescuing the girls, sending them to school, and they would eventually go back into the trade. So the plan is that we will be able to provide residential educational facilities for them. And we do provide a number of different support to partners throughout Kenya and a lesser extent on the Ugandan border. Also, refugee support for Somalian refugees in Kenya coming over the border. Throughout the Caribbean, we have a number of projects. We've been working with the Haitian refugees in Bahamas, starting with Dorian in 2019. We've been involved in almost all the disasters that have happened locally, regionally, and internationally. We are responding still. We took the lead with Dominica. We were there for months. Our project manager, Brent Hector and Gemma Benny, would have been in different countries on the ground, providing support assessment. We are still studying stuff to St. Vincent. We are going to be sending off stuff to St. Lucia tomorrow. So we are very, very active in relief and development. Haiti, we have a couple properties in Haiti, and we've had a tremendous amount of investment there in terms of education, health, food, clothes, and just also partnership, things like water, putting wells in communities and stuff. So that's it in terms of business enterprise. So the relief, if there's a disaster, there's a flood, some kind of thing, and then development, looking at things like school, health, micro enterprise, wells, water is a big thing in other parts of the world. So that would be some of the things that we are looking at globally and regionally.
Okay, I am amazed at what you are able to do and what you've been able to do in the 19-year period that you've had this organization. I mean, first of all, I cannot help but be touched by the humanity that informs the work that you do and the caring that attends the way that you do your work and the tremendous empathy that you have, and I suspect this is passed on to the people who work with you, for people
Yes,
who
our team
really,
are amazing, amazing.
yes,
And they are volunteers, doctors, engineers, builders, nurses, cooks, everybody that comes, teachers. They
and they come
come, a lot of them,
voluntarily to help and to
yes,
work
yes,
and to do
yes,
as best as they can for others who are in need.
yes.
And the
Our
second thing
model and
the second thing I'm amazed at is the extent to which you have been able to build resources and create capacity on the basis of building those resources, all of it without government help. And with support and a support network that you have built not only in Trinidad and Tobago, but across the world. And I really, really want to commend you on that and really speak with admiration to your resourcefulness and the fact that you are building capacity wherever you go so that you can have anchorage and you can do all of these things that you want to do. Now, I would think that with your experience, I mean, you could be very valuable in the solution, in the long-term solution of problems in Trinidad and Tobago. And let me tell you what I mean. For instance, there are 1.4 million people in Trinidad and Tobago. We have about 450,000 households. We know that there are about, well, with COVID now it might be more, but we know that there are about 30% of the population that lives with poverty or worse every single day. And we have 600 communities identifiable in Trinidad and Tobago. So it is possible in Trinidad and Tobago. Today we have GIS mapping. It is possible to do all of these things. It is possible to identify in every community those households that need help and support, those households that are without income, those households that are with children not going to school. And instead of trying to do it for 1.4 million people, or let's say 100 households, what you are trying to do is identify in each community what are the households. It might be 10 in some, it might be 100 in another. And you do that and you try to help them. Is there some kind of scientific approach based on your experience that can be brought to this so that we can help people not only to to attend to their needs, but to get them to the point where they can begin to help themselves and be resilient and self-supporting over time? That is to say, you create the conditions in which they can engage the economy in some way. Can you speak to that a little bit? Because I think your experience is invaluable. I don't know of anyone who has this kind of experience in such a deep way and for so long.
Well, Doc, what I would say
and has youth
again,
and energy too.
50 heads, you seem like I'm so like I was born yesterday. But what I would, and this is what again, I'm not meaning to preempt my proposal today, the PS, but to suggest again, NGOs are on the ground and we know the communities. If we zone the NGOs, if we collect a data of those groups that are serious and assess their strength, do a SWOT analysis of the NGO community in Trinidad and Tobago, and the government decides, okay, what are the problems, what are the things that we are going to deal with? And some things, for example, will be an overlap of ministries. So if we're looking at crime and those type of things, that is connected, not direct, because every poor person doesn't thief. I didn't turn out to be a thief. My brothers didn't turn out to be thieves, and we were very poor. So not every poor person becomes a bandit. But it is a fact that there's a correlation between crime and poverty. So, for example, if we talk in social development, there will be that interlap between social development and Ministry of National Security. So we look at what are the things that we have. If there are men's group, that their focus is supported, because a lot of young men, they join gangs because we know why, sense of belonging, no, that sort of support. So if we have that kind of engagement in our society, the government knows who are the people that we can partner with, and the government then provides us, for example, with community command centers. So for let's just say we have 41 community centers, or if we look at, say, let's just say there's certain, Digo Martin as a constituency, for example, is very broad. You have all the way Digo Martin, and then you have all the way Carnage, so it's very broad. So for example, a constituency like Digo Martin might have to have a command center and a sub-command center, where people in the community, we actually go out and we do a census who is in our community. And that also poses a challenge because of people being continuously evicted. We have people moving all over. So we, in our house in St. James, we have people from Point Fortin. We had people from Princeton because that was the only place that until we get our south places, that's the only place that they could find, other than Beale Street. So, but we have a sense of who is in our community and what do we have. So the state has a lot of resources. There's something called a seed grant program that last week some people got it to start their business. Some people get 7,500, some people get 15,000. That mightn't seem much to some people. But if I'm a single mom and I want to start a bake, I can do a lot with 7,500. So people don't know what is available to us. Right. So in these command centers, we assess what people do. And that's one of the things that we are going to use as a...
There can be a certain amount of guidance and mentorship as well.
Right. So we know who's there. Yes.
A lot of people need guidance. They need support.
Yes.
They've not done it before. And
yes.
In your experience of Trinidad and Tobago, there is urban poverty, which is dire, and there is also rural poverty, which is quite a horrible thing as well. So you would say that this is panoramic of Trinidad and Tobago?
Yes, it is. But you see, what we would have called rural, because the urban people, at least they had a minimum paid job. So, for example, if you're in the country, there might just be farming, the village shop, 1 or 2 little micro enterprises. So somebody have a factory. So there are limited job opportunities unless you move far away and you commuted daily or something. Unless you commuted, Dr. Bhoe, unless you commuted daily from that long distance to be able to get a job. What we have seen with COVID is that even those people that are in urban areas now, the jobs that they would have subsisted on no longer exists or has not existed for a considerable amount of time due to the lockdowns, and they will have probably just come out, as we say, catching yourself and then bam, into another lockdown. So yes, it is different, but the variables are changing, and in a way it's a bit of an equalizer, because if I'm living in the city where there are many businesses but the businesses are not open, I'm really no different. And at least if I was in the country, I could get some yam to boil, some green fig to eat. I am in the city, in the concrete jungle, economic and existence, can't pay the man 1,800 or his 2,000. My children are hungry. It's very frustrating. I'm paying my internet bill for my children to go online.
Okay, so you're saying that there's a difference between rural and urban poverty?
I'm saying there is a difference, but what COVID has done, it has sort of reduced a lot of the differences.
It has created an equalizer.
Right, right.
I didn't want acceleration and
yes.
an increase.
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Avian. This has been very useful, very enlightening, certainly to me and all listeners. We have to break for the news now, but I want to thank you for coming on